reference elsewhere. But...
Okay, I see. All right, well, welcome to the podcast, everyone, where we talk about all things entrepreneurship, tech, and innovation. I'm your host, Shashank, and today I'm excited to introduce someone very special, a friend of mine who's done it all. He studied government and economics at Harvard before teaching himself how to code and working at multiple startups in Silicon Valley, and he's now building his own ventures. Hi, Trey. How you doing?
I'm good, man. Thank you. I'm honored to be your first guest, and I'm excited for this conversation. It should be fun.
Great, fantastic. So today we're just going to talk about what you've done and what you want to do, and also any tips you have for people looking to do the same thing or working on their own thing.
Cool. Sounds good.
So what first drew you to programming in general? I mean, I know you studied government and economics in university, so it's quite different to what you're doing now, right? So what facilitated that switch?
Yeah, honestly, it was a pretty winding path, I would say, to get me there. I think I've always had a bit of an entrepreneurial push somewhere inside of me, but didn't really know that that's what I wanted to do full time until probably my junior year of undergrad. Prior to that, had explored going into public office of some sort. That's kind of the inspiration of or for studying government. Gave the finance path a shot for a second there, whether it was investment banking or consulting, and it just knew that wasn't for me. But I think all along I had sort of these little stints where I'd have an idea that was okay, that's a business, that's a company right there, I can build that. But I was always frustrated by not being able to just build it myself. I was always looking for someone to be that technical co-founder to really help me take that idea and sort of work collaboratively to bring it to life. And at some point, just got tired of waiting and trying to find that person. So really just taught myself on the side, just enough to get by until got to the point where I felt pretty comfortable with taking whatever ideas I had and at the very minimum, turning them into an MVP.
Yeah, okay, that's very cool. I guess I had kind of a similar experience in the beginning as well, trying to find technical co-founders, being like, damn, I can't do this. I want to do this, but I can't. And eventually you have to turn to someone else. That's really frustrating. So yeah, I'm glad you found your own way out as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You right back at you.
So yeah, I think Harvard around the world is a thing, maybe because it's featured so much in popular fiction and things, but it's a little mythical, everyone talks about Harvard being sort of an exceptional school.
Right.
So can you tell me more about that? Do you agree with sort of the interpretation of Harvard? Do you think you learned a lot?
Yeah, no, so I will preface by saying that my experience was a little bit different. COVID actually hit during my freshman or first year, and I did not have a full year actually on campus physically until my last year of undergrad.
Yeah.
So definitely think that probably skewed my experience just a bit. But I will say that I don't know that there's a more special collection of people in terms of just the various backgrounds that they come from. Pretty much every class you have, you're sitting next to some billionaire's child and some in God and some person that's published 14 novels. And so in terms of just the collection of people, I think it's very special and probably deserves the reputation in that sense. But in terms of the actual courses, schoolwork, that sort of thing, it's really your typical school. Classes aren't really crazy hard. And in fact, we actually get accused all the time of having grade inflation, which of course not. We're all just deserving of that A. But yeah, it was a cool experience. I'm glad I did it, but I do think that in terms of what's helping me now the most, I do think it is just kind of what I've learned and taught myself to do on the side, and what I was, I guess, lacking in those classes.
Okay, very interesting. So do you think part of the reason why it has that reputation is just because of how exclusive it is to get into? So as you mentioned, you're sitting next to published authors and billionaires' children, who I assume are going to go on to, with their family experience and money, can go on to do very exceptional things. So do you think that's the reason why it's so looked upon so favorably?
Yeah, no, I would say so. I mean, there definitely are plenty of very, very well-known alumni of the school, whether it's the dropouts like Zuck or people that did go through and graduate, and it's all fields. It's Natalie Portman in acting. It's the top people on Wall Street. It's all these different people.
Yeah.
In that sense, like I think a lot of those people did sort of pave their own path through Harvard and didn't rely on the family name. But I think that just having that exclusivity in the actual initial admissions process does tend to lead to a lot of those people going on to do pretty exceptional things in the real world, whether it's from their own merits or not.
It's quite interesting because in Australia we have universities that are considered quite good in a global standpoint, but certainly nothing famous, right? So we don't attract, I think, as much reputation from around the world and people like that, and therefore we don't have unis that are like mythical and things. So it's quite interesting to get that perspective.
Yeah, no, and honestly, I think I've met several Australian people at Harvard. It's not only like a bunch of the brightest minds of the States, it's people from all over, and definitely not been exposed to that sort of international flair until I got there.
So you moved from Harvard, you started there, you studied, and then you decided you had an entrepreneurial spirit, you decided you want to do stuff. Tell us about how you transitioned from Harvard into San Francisco and eventually started working for startups and things like that. Yeah,
so honestly, it was kind of a mistake. Definitely was not planned at all. My spring semester of my senior year, I was about to graduate and was working on a startup idea. Actually, it was trying to build like an AI personal financial advisor. Made absolutely no progress, if I'm being completely honest, over that semester. And
were you working with a technical co-founder here? Or?
Yes. Okay. And we had like a very kind of minimal product, which was really just like a chat bot that was no better than a basic ChatGPT query. But we were just trying to figure out like what we could actually build that into being. And if I'm being honest, like kind of thinking back, my idea was for that to be some sort of agent for personal finance, but just ahead of its time, honestly, in terms of like what models could do from a proactive standpoint, and then also just like knowledge and interpretation. And then also we probably just weren't the team to do it. So that was sort of what I was working on. And because of that, I had sort of spurned doing what a lot of my classmates had been doing, which was preparing for consulting interviews or investment banking interviews and things like that. So I was full steam ahead, believed that this was a future unicorn. And so really kind of like, I guess, wasn't adhering to all my responsibilities in that sense. But that summer, I kind of finally came to the conclusion that, this is not necessarily going anywhere. And didn't really know what to do. So made the decision to shut it down. But at the same time, was just reaching out to literally any founder that I could that was in an industry of interest, whether it was fintech or Web3. Honestly, like even AI, I really wasn't like full steam ahead on the AI train, I would say. But all these like interesting industries and DMing the founders on LinkedIn and Twitter and cold email and literally anything I could do until I got really lucky. Honestly, I found a company called Infobot that was going through YC that summer. That was summer 23. Talked to the founder, like literally sent him a cold DM and was like, hey, I'm interested. I'll do whatever you want me to do. Like I can fill any role you need me to, but this is a super cool company and I just want an opportunity. And like literally 10 minutes later, we were on a call and talked for like more than an hour, just kind of about like what my interest was, what his vision was for the company. And by the end of the day, like I'd already booked a flight for a couple of days later to at least go and meet the guys in person in SF. So Infobot was building like AI personalized news. My role with them was head of growth. And so really just kind of as the only like non-technical guy, it was anything that wasn't coding was pretty much what I was doing.
Incredible. So how many people were there when you were brought on as head of growth?
Yeah, there were only 4 of us. It was 3 co-founders. I was the first hire. But yeah, it was an amazing experience, honestly.
Right. Wow. So you got that job with close to no experience. I mean, obviously you studied and you worked on your own thing, and I'm sure you used that. But you just cold emailed the guy and said, "Listen, I really love your company. I want to work with it," and that's it.
Yeah, pretty much. Told him like what my background was and really what I was looking for, but it was pretty broad, honestly. I think it was just kind of like the founder and I, Justin Harvey, super smart guy. I'm from Texas. He's from Texas. We're both like former athletes. Like we just kind of bonded on a lot of fronts, and I think that in many ways he reminded me of really of me and what I wanted to be in 5 or 6 years. And I think he kind of saw me as like a younger version of himself in a way. And so really, I think it was that just kind of personal connection that really led to that opportunity.
That's very cool. Do you do you have any advice that you could give to someone who maybe they're coming out of uni, maybe they're looking to get into sort of entrepreneurship or startups or something, and how they can approach that like you did?
Right.
Any advice?
Yeah, I think the first thing is just be comfortable with being rejected. Like you will send hundreds and hundreds of emails and DMs and things like that, and honestly probably see like a lower than 5% response rate, and then of that response rate, maybe 5% of that is going to be positive to the point of even like wanting further information. And so just know that it's a numbers game, and you can do all the research you want, and you can boost those numbers a little bit in terms of both response rate and the outcome of that response. But it really is just mass shooting. And I think the other thing is really understanding where it is that you can add value. And I think for me, it was sort of my being a generalist, honestly. Like I really do think I could at the time fill any role that was needed, and really be able to like just figure shit out. And I think that being able to convey that and where you think that you can genuinely add value is also important, because if you can't sell them on you, then it's going to be hard for them to, they just can't know you as well as you know you. And so you really have to be able to express what it is that you can do.
Okay, great. And it sounds like it's also about not being too picky, not being like, hey, this is what I want to do, this is what I want to do. Just being able to accept that you're going to do whatever you can, and getting in the trenches, suffering and learning and figuring it out, right?
Yeah, I would definitely say so, unless it's something you're starting yourself. At that point, we definitely say pick something that you're passionate about, but otherwise it just kind of depends on your goals. If you're just trying to get your foot in the door, be willing to take whatever you can get.
Cool. All right, so let's talk about you're at Infobot now. Let's talk about how you transferred from Infobot to eventually starting your own stuff and working on your own stuff.
Yeah. So revenue on day one of Infobot when I got there was $0, and when I left at the end of March, so about 8 months after I joined, revenue was still $0. we really were just like didn't have a product. We tried a bunch of different things. None of them like really took off. But at the same time, I don't think we really flushed any of them out like we could have. But that was sort of the end of it. The three guys, I guess kind of like it's important to say, like our final version of the product was we had this app where people could come in and enter some information about themselves, and they would get a daily news recap where you get like all the news that's specifically tailored and important to you in like 5 minutes. We didn't just provide it, like we built this system and suite of tools that really took that news and made it attractive and easily digestible for people. So like videos and memes and all sorts of stuff like that. Which was actually super complex and super good stuff. Like it was kind of pre-Sora. And even now, I think that what they're able to do with like charts and graphs and really like tailoring what they're building to the text is pretty top of the totem pole. But they went and decided that they're going to just go ahead and sell that product that they had. They're now currently aivideo.com. So shout out to those guys. And for me, it was, go and try to figure something else out. I think at first I was kind of like, this sucks. I don't know what to do, but probably literally within 24 hours was like working on building my own like college football simulator. Like really, it was just, I think the first time in forever that I had a chance to just sit down and tinker and do something that I wanted to do that wasn't just grow Infobot. And so that's kind of what I did. I tinkered around with some ideas for a little while. None of them really took off. I was working on my newsletter also. I had a newsletter that I ran for about 2 years called The Startup Breakdown, really discovering startups, and then kind of eventually towards the end shifted to where I was just doing profiles on YC companies in the latest batch. I joined kind of on a part-time basis a company called WeFunder here in SF. They are a crowdfunding platform, the biggest, most respected, I'd say, of those companies. And they actually have like legit companies coming through, whether it was Beehive most recently, or Replit, like all of these like very, very well-known companies that have run these crowdfunding rounds. And at the same time was working on a company called PostOnce on the side. Was still pre like incorporation and everything, but pretty much had built this series of automations to take my newsletter and help mass distribute it to various platforms, whether it was LinkedIn or Twitter. And I realized that it was a cool product. And I was like, okay, other writers probably would want to use this. And so I started selling it to other writers. And next thing you knew, I had a little software company. So went full time on that eventually, but kind of plateaued, I would say, in terms of where I was going. I was adding new features and everything, but and improving the content quality. But I think at the end of the day, I kind of came to the conclusion that there really is a pretty low ceiling on the idea, because it's not really solving a problem, I would say. Cool tool, cool features, feedback is positive, but especially like the year wrapping up, it was a lot of people down on subscriptions and things like that. So that's kind of what's brought me up to this point.
Okay, can you go into a little bit more detail about PostOnce? So how you got into it, also just what specifically the product does,
Right.
and the kind of customer base you had while you were running it full time.
Right. So the big idea was building agents for content creators. Pretty much the way I was going to do that was start specifically with Beehive newsletter writers, mostly because I was most familiar with Beehive and they had a pretty robust API. What I did was built a system where you could come in, create your account, you connect your Beehive account via that API, you connect your social media accounts, whether it's LinkedIn or Twitter, and you automatically choose from a dropdown which article you want to create social media content for, and then the output that you wanted in, whether it was a thread or a carousel or like a teaser post, things like that. And it would automatically generate it for you. Had a pretty complex series, a pipeline on the back end of a series of long calls that would like take it, kind of break it down into different sections of the newsletter, so you could really juice as much content out of it as possible. And it even like personalize the posts based on your own social media posting history. And so got really good feedback on that. You could even like edit it, post it all directly from the same dashboard. I was pretty proud of it. It really was. It was cool, and I used it myself. That's kind of what it was. Never expanded beyond Beehive writers. But yeah, I think I was kind of stuck where I was like, okay, I can continue to add new features, could branch out to like Substack and other newsletter platforms, or there was really nothing holding me back from just allowing people to upload transcripts and things like that from videos. But I realized it was kind of like adding more features, adding more integrations wasn't really solving that core root problem of not solving a problem. And so kind of made the decision to just cut my losses there. But again, super glad I did it. I learned a ton and met a lot of really, really cool people from that experience in the newsletter space. And so, yeah, I'm happy with the results.
Okay, so it sounds like you built a pretty cool product, but you maybe didn't quite find the right market for it, if there even was a right market for it.
Agreed. Yeah, I absolutely agree with
that. So, I mean, obviously in all of your building your own stuff and working on your own things, you've come across a lot of different AI tools, a lot of different general tools, and a lot of different insights into how to build things, how to not do things as well. I mean, there's pros and cons. So in terms of tools and insights, what do you have anything you want to share?
Sure. Yeah, I think honestly, if you're not just playing around with AI tools, you are seriously missing out. I think like even if it's just ChatGPT and just Claude and some of the basic ones, I think if you really learn how to use them, it really is a superpower in a way where it takes a lot of the manual, like tactical execution part of it and can complement the human ingenuity that those systems simply cannot replicate yet. And so even now, like even though I say I'm technical, it's more so I'm just really, really good at prompting and using ChatGPT and stuff. So definitely say that's a big one. I think honestly I stick mostly with ChatGPT, use it on a pretty daily basis. kind of go through like series where I'm upset with one of that or Claude, because I'm like, it's being stupid. It's like not helping me at all right now. And I'll switch to the other one for a few weeks and then eventually get irritated with that one and move back. But it's also just like trying to follow the news on what the latest models are, how people are enjoying those. I really haven't tried Cursor yet, although I really need to because I've heard.
Yeah, I would recommend.
But yeah, I'd say that those are really kind of the core ones that I use.
Okay, cool. So I mean, obviously, PostOnce is an AI tool as well. So you mentioned you use that yourself. Do you still use it yourself? Do you put out a lot of content?
Not as much anymore. I kind of did put the startup breakdown on pause when I decided to work full time on PostOnce. But you know, I have a little more time on my hands, so who knows? Maybe like and subscribe.
You'll bring it back. What's it? It's called the Startup Breakdown. Is that how?
Startup Breakdown. Yeah, www.thestartupbreakdown.com.
Fantastic. All right.
There you go.
Good to get that there. All right, sweet. So now, advice for aspiring founders. I mean, you've covered this briefly, but if there's anything else you want to add, I mean, obviously, you've been working on your own stuff for quite a while. You've also worked on other startups in Silicon Valley, including very small ones. So I'm sure you've learned a lot about what to do and also, as we spoke about earlier, what not to do. Is there any advice you have for someone who really wants to start their own thing and they're not quite sure? They haven't made any mistakes yet. They haven't made any positives yet.
Yeah. Well, first off, know that you will make a lot of those, a lot of mistakes and a lot of errors along the way, but it's really just part of the process. I think you can spend as much time as you want reading entrepreneur books and business books or listening to podcasts and things like that, but really none of them are going to teach you more than 1% of what it is. 99% of it is just getting in there and doing it. And so if I had to like break it down to one piece of advice, it would be just do it. And I don't want Nike to see me on that one, but like I think at some point there really is no more preparation you can do. You just have to get in there and learn how to do it yourself. And then the other thing is I think like you just have to be able to figure stuff out. No one really knows the answers. And so I think for me, I was like pretty intimidated coming into the space, especially from a less technical background of like, okay, all these people know what they're doing. They're talking about like infrastructure of like softwares and they're talking about, you know, raising money and all these things like that. And for me, I was like, I don't really know how to do that. And you kind of just have to fake it till you make it. Cause I realized from being out here really and just talking to so many people that have done these awesome things, whether it's scaled a company to 100 employees or raised hundreds of millions of dollars or built some incredible groundbreaking product. And at the end of the day, like they still feel like they're figuring things out too. And so I think it's just kind of understanding that everyone's figuring it out. And the only way to get closer to figuring it out is just getting in there and doing it.
Okay. Yeah, that's very cool. I guess it's like trying to read about, you know, how to use a hammer and a nail, right? Like exactly. You can read all you want, you'll get as much education as you want. idea, but you really have to start hammering before you.
Yeah. Once you get out there, you're still gonna hit your thumb.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good one. All right, cool, man. Well, thanks for covering all that. Let's just talk about future plans, I guess. What's next for Trey?
Yeah, I'm honestly kind of tinkering around with some ideas. I think something in the B2B space is probably where I'm going to go next. I think there's a pretty massive gap in, well, one, I think that there's still plenty of opportunity in the agent space, whether it's like specific verticals like sales or marketing or things like that. But also I think that there's a more fundamental infrastructure piece that's still missing, specifically around like context. When it comes to models. And I think that I've been doing a lot of thinking about that, a lot of tinkering and, just being annoying on LinkedIn about sending cold DMs and stuff to people to try to understand and better learn like how I can build a solution or really kind of learning from PostOnce, making sure that I'm solving a very specific problem and then going from there and then trying to build a solution that fixes that.
Okay, very cool. And just to cover quickly, it's sort of a theme I've seen from a lot of successful people and that you've talked about a couple of times already. Just like willingness to just be annoying and also do things that maybe people won't consider, right? Like you'll randomly cold email a guy who runs a startup you like about doing something. You'll be annoying. You'll send cold DMs to whoever you find interesting, right? And most people will be intimidated, like, oh, they'd never apply to me, or I'd never get anything out of this. I need to follow traditional channels, put in a resume through the marketing team or whatever. So what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, no, honestly, I have not gotten a single job or internship or anything from just applying. It's every single one of them has been through sending in a DM or an email or something like that. I think really it just comes down to being scrappy, doing whatever it takes, hustling, just making it happen. And again, it's a numbers game. Like, you're going to get rejected far, far more times than you won't. And at some point, you just kind of stop feeling it. Every no is just kind of a word. It's no longer some, oh, they think I'm not worthy as a person experience. I mean, honestly, part of it was my experience at Infobot. I didn't really go into depth on this, but there were times where we were so desperate for growth that I was literally downtown San Francisco walking the streets doing man on the street interviews. Or when we did have that app, we got our first 100 downloads from literally me and another guy going to coffee shops around San Francisco, going up to people and making them download it right there. So I mean, really, you kind of hear it a lot. Like, you have to just hustle and be scrappy. But I think a lot of people hear that advice and don't actually take it to heart. And so you just have to be able to or be willing really to do the things that other people won't, even if it seems embarrassing at first. Eventually stop caring.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of the hardest things you can do, but it sounds like you've really got it down, which is really cool.
Yeah, well, we'll see you the next time I get rejected. I'll let you know.
Of course. All right, man. Thank you very much for your time. I've really enjoyed this chat. So you mentioned the startupbreakdown.com. Is there any other social media you have that people can follow you on if they're watching this?
Yeah, I'm pretty degenerate on Twitter. So if you want to follow me at Trey Layton 3, TREYLAYTON 3, like the number, I'm literally always there. So feel free to reach out. Also on LinkedIn, find me at Trey Layton. I have not updated my bio. Still says founder at PostOnce. I'm still writing the super formal letter announcing my decision to move on, but so don't expose me for that. But yeah, feel free to connect with me there as well. Yeah,
it sounds good. Thank you very much, Trey.
Absolutely, man.